Hey everyone, I wanted to talk a little bit about how there's so much bullshit going on in the world today. Um, I think the biggest problem I have with America, and I guess you could say the I would say the biggest problem I have is the warfare state. And I think the big change for me is, I used to be a neoconservative, and I still am a Christian, but there was always something that I seemed to overlook, and that is collateral damage in war. I think collateral damage in war is perhaps the great overlooked evil of America. And it's a shame. Someone right now who's a neoconservative might say, I hate America first. But one thing I think sometimes Christians even forget is that there are some things that are more important than America. And they're supposed to believe that, but I don't know that they do. And as I've kind of seen the war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, the war in Libya, and then of course once it spreads into Pakistan, once we're into Venezuela, Iran, who knows where else? Somalia, I mean, it can go anywhere. It's made me question or try to figure out what the hell is going on. And I think what I would do is put it this one way. I will only support the United States going to war if a nation and its people chose to attack us without us directly attacking them first. That's the only situation in which it would be a just war, and it would be just to respond. So let's take Libya, for example. President Obama claims that we and NATO, and don't think for a second that just because it's a NATO mission, that we do not have moral responsibility in this. Unfortunately, we do. We elected President Obama. We, therefore, are responsible. And yes, it is true, though. He completely lied and misled us. However, he never said he would not put our troops in harm's way on a humanitarian mission alone. But let's analyze this for a second. How is it a humanitarian mission when the stated reason for intervening in Libya was because Gaddafi said, he used words, and said he would slaughter people? In response, we enact a humanitarian mission by doing what? Bombing and killing and slaughtering those very same innocent civilians. It never makes sense. Anything that these mainstream, elitist, anything that they reveal their truth, they say that we're doing it, we're doing A because of B and C. Typically, A is going to result in more of B and C. So a good example of this is, I've said this before on my channel, but I'm going to say it again. A great example of this is when we're told we need to intervene in the Middle East to create stability. And that if we eject from the region, there's going to be a vacuum, and there will be someone to fulfill that vacuum, and that there will be more chaos. Well, since we've been involved in the Middle East, what has happened in the Middle East? Chaos. Oh, we're supposed to intervene in the Middle East. Well, then because of oil. We need to secure the price of oil, keep it cheap. Okay, well, what's happened since we've intervened in the Middle East, since we went into Iraq? Oil has completely skyrocketed. It was what, at $20, $30 a barrel before Iraq? And now it's over 100. All their reasons are all lies. But more importantly than that, I think that we as a country, we need to understand our moral responsibility from these wars, these acts of aggression. You know, for those of you who have kids, you know, let's say your son is walking down the street and someone comes up to him and hits him in the face. Does he not then have a moral right to respond with physical violence if necessary to defend himself? Of course he does. However, does the person who came up and just hit him for no reason, does that person have any moral righteousness to do such a thing? Of course not. That same principle applies to war. Iraq. In order to justify a war against Iraq, the Iraqi people would have had to have given sanction to their federal government to attack us directly. And then any civilians that we then kill in response is blood on their hands, because it was an act of aggression that they began and we finished. Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, in all of those instances, the federal governments of those countries did not directly attack the United States of America. And it could even be further argued whether or not the people authorized it. But the moral principle is still the same. It needs to be a government, and if it's not a government, then what are we doing? It's more of a police action, and it needs to be treated as such. And so, a lot of people talk about Libya in terms of, well, there's going to be a massacre. What about the massacre that NATO and the United States is currently doing in Libya? The civilians that we are currently killing. And I think that really what changed me the most was an understanding that those deaths are on our hands. We are responsible for each and every one of those deaths, so that when they occur, we need to have an answer as to why it's worth it, or how they're responsible for it. You know, a good example of this would be Pearl Harbor. Japan attacked us, and we responded. So therefore, the war and the deaths that were caused within our country and theirs, in effect, are on their hands. They were willing to and decided to go to war with us. So therefore, they chose to pay the consequences, and those deaths are on their hands. Now, there are still some people who are morally inept, who try to blame, you know, America for dropping the bomb, and no one wants to drop the bomb. But the act of aggression was started by them. The act of physical aggression was started by them. Now, there are some other, of course, there is a motivation for Japan during that time period. I believe it was access to oil, right? Isn't that always the case? I'm not 100% sure about that, but that's what I believe. But again, it's a total concept of actually using morals or principles, or following your morals and actually believing in and having certain principles when it comes to declaring war and why you declare them. What's the threat? And see, that's why President Obama does not want to go to Congress. Well, first of all, President Obama, I think he's a very dangerous president. Incredibly dangerous. Because I think he's probably the most dishonest president we've ever had. Well, that's really saying something, but it's true. I mean, it's like he's a different person now than when not just when he ran, but when he was a senator. He's a completely different person now. It's like there's someone else pulling the strings and he's doing other things, so it's like you don't know what he's going to do next. You literally do not know. I think he has a tendency to make up his own rules. I know he does. So all this talk about the debt ceiling thing, I don't think he personally gives a shit about the debt ceiling. If he had it his way, he'd probably just say, screw it, I'm not going to follow the debt ceiling. So all this stuff is just political theater. He's just using it for political show. He wants the economy to collapse. He wants martial law declared. He wants to take control. He is a socialist. He is a tyrant. Take a look at his foreign policy. Okay, take a look at his desire to economically intervene into every part of the economy. Why? So that we can stop economic booms and busts. So what happens when we intervene into the economy? We have booms and then busts. He wants to raise taxes on the rich. Yet at the same time, he claims that because of loopholes in the tax code, they don't pay any taxes. Well, how's that going to change anything then? And also, of course, when you raise taxes on the rich, what happens? You get less. I'm almost to the point, if I'm Republicans, I don't know, they should just turn his game around on him and say, fine, tax him. Then what? And then, like I mentioned the other day, that the Mr. Democrat, Barack Hussein Obama, has chosen to throw out the candy of cutting, I think it was Medicare and Social Security, and then also raising taxes. They said raising taxes by $2 trillion. I thought was what they said. I don't know what they're talking about. You can't judge that. And of course, I found it fascinating that Mr. Barack Obama, Mr. Anti-War, Mr. Peace, Love, and Understanding, Mr. Nobel Peace Prize, I haven't heard him mention cutting our military or bringing our troops home. That's weird. I could have swore he was the peace candidate. No, he wasn't. He's a warmonger, just like President Bush was. So, really the whole point of this video is to get at we need to understand, we need to start as a society, as a world, not a country, as a world. Every person in this world, if everyone in this world, it's easy for me to say, could read someone like Ron Paul's books and understand the concepts and principles of liberty, that would change the country over, I said a country again, the world. It would change the world overnight. Because when you understand the true principles of liberty, there's no need for war. There's no need for hatred. There's no need for even violence. Unless, of course, someone is directly threatening you. It simplifies things down. It unites us. It's a uniter, not a divider. But that's, it'll probably never happen. At least, you know what? Maybe it will happen. It's almost inevitable, probably, that people start to look for and seek out the principles of liberty, because they are very, in my opinion, the principles of liberty are very Christian, or very, really, a lot of faiths. Most faiths have, tenets of Christianity as we know them here in America. And so you're going to see a lot of the same thing in other religions. And so most religions really are sort of a version of their own, they have their own libertarian principles. And so really I think we just need to start thinking more about this. And it is frustrating right now because we're kind of in an odd situation of I don't know if I can't say that the American people voted for someone because they thought he would take us to war, or they thought he would declare preeminent wars. I don't know that would be fair to claim that they did, because they didn't. But in the end, the moral responsibility is still on us, because he is our leader who we did elect. And if, in the end, if they're doing something that we think is so egregious, then we need to impeach them. And we have a way to do that. Most other countries, they have to rise up for a civil war. And then what do we do when someone does try to rise up in a civil war? We go in, our government does, and they intervene. And what's going to happen is the United States is going to embolden and empower Gaddafi. He's going to lose his resistance because people are going to go to his cause because they see us coming in there and killing people, innocent civilians. Their brethren, we are killing their people, and we have no business being there. So it's going to end up actually emboldening Gaddafi, possibly. Who knows? If they can't get to him first, I suppose. Either that or they're going to poison his ass. So that's pretty much it. Video's gone longer than I wanted, but this stuff just drives me crazy. Bottom line is we have no business being in Libya. They did not attack us. No one from Libya directly attacked the United States of America. None of the people in Libya authorized their government to attack our government, so therefore we have no right to attack them. It's as simple as that. And all of the civilian deaths, people right now that are probably dying in Libya. There's a child right now who's bleeding profusely, and they're going to die. They're crying. Their moms, their dad, their whole family's crying. And there's probably a big, gigantic USA missile sitting in their living room. That's our responsibility. That blood is on our hands. Is it worth it? Do we need it? It's pathetic. It's evil. It's immoral, and I'm against it. It's that simple. I will never support these type of actions ever. See ya.